And we're off, guys. Welcome to the Locked On monthly webinar. First of all, let me apologize for all the people that had to cancel for last week. As I mentioned, just had a bit of a family emergency, so I just had to put that on hold for that day. But I'm glad that you could all make it for this webinar today. So the first session we're looking at is adding clients and working with buyers. So before we jump into that, let's just go over basic housekeeping. Most locked on users that are already set up know the core fundamentals of what these numbers on the dashboard mean and where all your menus are on the left-hand side. So the things I just want to run over the stats here. I got quite a few questions about, well, what do these numbers mean? So 34 is the clients I have in my database and 45 is the contacts. Now, that means that I have 34 client records, and some of those records have husband and wife, and that's why there's 45 contacts. So if you're really looking at your database and you said, well, actually, how many people do I have in my database? It's the bigger number. But how many records do you have? It's the smaller number. So that's just the way to think about that. Now, the direct and all, these two numbers at the top, that means the direct means that you're the primary assigned agent. So in my potential sellers, I have access to 25. Now I'm an admin user, I have access to the whole database. So out of the 25, 19 of them are assigned to me as the primary agent. So if I click the 19, it will load them. If I click the 25, it will load all the potential sellers in my database. If I click the 19, just to show you this, because it makes sense for the next three buttons on the main screen, if we go into the first person and we look at the information, you can see primary agent is Luke Noonan, and the primary will always be in gold. So that means that 19 potential sellers in the database are assigned to me. So if you're using your account and you see two numbers there and you're like, I want to communicate with my potential sellers, you click the first number. It's the same with your buyers. I have 22 out of the 28 buyers in the account. So if I want to communicate with my buyers, because I'm the primary agent, I click the 22. And also we can track potential tenants, and 4 out of the 5 I have are mine. Now the buttons below refer to any property that you're linked to as an agent for appraisals. So if you're a primary or secondary, it'll tell you how many appraised records you have in the database. Really important number to know. Your listings is if you're a listing agent or secondary listing agent, you can click that and it will load your listings. And exchanges are your unconditional or exchanges that are pending sale at the moment that you are attached as a as a listing agent or secondary listing agent. And your commission will show you how much commission you have based on your properties that are pending exchange. So if I look at this particular property here and I go into the life cycle sales advice, here we can see we've got a contract price, we've got our commission amount, and in the sold by, we'll look at this, the listings, we've got Luke, and on the information, we'll put assigned to me, and we'll update this. And if you want to ever refresh your stats, this is important. You can leave the screen and come back to it. It tells you the last date and time that the stats were refreshed. And this refresh button will recalculate those stats. And you can now see, because I'm the primary agent on that exchange property, it's totaling the commission I have for all the sales that I have pending. That's what number you see on the dashboard there. So you have a quick summary of what's on today as well. You also have some line graphs based on 3 months, 6 months, 12 or 18 based on listings, exchange, appraisals. You can see your commissions if you're putting in splits as well. We'll look at that more in the session around properties. So you can flick this between what you want to see for date ranges. The upcoming birthdays will always show you the next 30 days of birthdays that you have in your account. This is really important for when we look at triggers at the end of today's session. Locked On has an automatic way to find anyone who has a birthday today in your account and send them an SMS or an email. So I'll show you what they look like when we start putting clients in, but it's not something that everyone does, but here's a great thing to start thinking about. Every time you make a sale, every time you get a new listing, ask them for their driver's license to fill in the form and write down their birth date. So you can track that in the system, and you know that automatically every year from here until they die or you die, they're getting an SMS and an email from you that says happy birthday every morning on their birthday. So I'll show you that trigger automation soon, but start thinking about getting more birthdays. You also have your last email stats down the bottom. We'll go into email stats in detail in this next part. And this is important, the training. So we do this monthly webinar, first Wednesday every month. You can register by hitting the green button, but the watch previous will also take you into our Locked On YouTube version 2 playlist. You'll always see the last webinar at the top, and all the new movies and features we put out will be at the top. And there's a ton, over 130 different movies, features that you can watch based on the Locked On functionality. And if there's something else you need in there or you've got a question, ask us in support. We generally create a movie and we put it up there if we haven't already got it. So that's a nice way to get back to that. So that's a bit of housekeeping on the dashboard. Now we're going to go through these menus on the left as we progress today. So these are just your main database areas. We're going to start in the clients. And the general rule of thumb is when you're working with data inside of Locked On is you always start with a client. So generally, real estate is buyers and sellers, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So if you want to add a new client to the database, you would click on clients, you would hit actions, and you would hit add. And when you go to put someone in, you can type their name and their details, and you can then put in their email or mobile, and it's going to duplicate check on that. Obviously, we don't want duplicates going into the system. Now, there is plenty of different ways you can configure your account. In this account that we've got today, which I'm going to show you, if we find a match, let's say it's another agent in my office, Dave Harmon, putting this person in, and he puts Luke and it says, look, Luke already belongs in the system. If you then click the add client, it opens up the existing record and adds Dave as a secondary person to them. So that's one way the system can work. The other way is that you do not allow agents to put people into the system if they already exist with another agent. So it'll say you cannot add this person. And the third option is that you're allowed duplicates, which we really have no one using. You shouldn't really be doing that. But if you had 3 agents and you wanted them all just to work their own data and you didn't care if the person was in there 3 or 4 times. So we're putting in names, mobile and email here, but I just want to show you this because this is used throughout the system, the address section. So it uses Google Maps to find the address if you start typing. So we can see we get a match and it fills in all the details below. If it doesn't fill in all the details, you can then enter in a unit number there, but you can see it saves you a fair bit of time, or you can type directly into all these fields. It's completely up to you, but I like using the Google match and selecting the address. So just to show you what I was talking about before with this duplicate checking, my account is that if we find someone who's already in the system, do not create a duplicate, but just open the record. So it's basically telling me Luke is in the system, hit add client. Now, when I add them, it already opens the record that's existing. And that record that existing already has Luke and Natalie, his wife. Let's just say we wanted to put their son in the system. You can add contacts by clicking the add and you can put in the son's name. And that will then save them and you can put in all of their contact details and mobile and email. When you're adding clients, you always add the postal address to the primary person. You do not need to have 56 Malua Street on Natalie or Austin because they all live at that same address. It's going to address letters to all of them and it's going to pick up that. If you put the address on Natalie and Austin, it will send 3 separate letters to all of them. So only if they live somewhere else and you want them to get their own letter, would you put a different postal address. The other thing that's quite important with having multiple contacts on the client card is this. Each person has their own contact settings in the edit area. So Natalie has told us, look, don't email or call me. So we've put these flags on. But if I take them off and we save that, whenever you go to SMS this record, so say you want to SMS Luke and Natalie, you hit send SMS, it will then be going to the 2 people on the record because they both have a valid mobile. So you can turn one off, on or off there and send it, but it's important you know that if you have a mobile or email for each contact, it will communicate with them through single communication or bulk communication. Okay, unless they tell you, look, don't call me or SMS me, or they unsubscribe, it will then adjust their contact settings. So we'll say to Natalie, do not SMS and do not call, and you'll see those icons appear back on her. Okay, and with Austin, if you want to remove someone, you can just remove that contact. So that's the first part about clients going into the database that would already exist. Now, we said we'll focus on buyers, and this is how buyers get into the system. Generally, you can add them just like I showed you, but if you're on realestate.com or domain.com, we can track your buyer inquiries directly into the system. And if you haven't got that set up, make sure you email the support team to ask them how you can for your account. You don't have to be uploading with us for this to work. There's many different ways that it can work. But if you are uploading to REO domain with us, this works automatically. You'll see that it tells me an orange dot, there's an inquiry here to be processed. So we capture all your inquiries into the system. When we talk about triggers and automation, one of the triggers we have is that it will send an email instantly to Luke and an SMS instantly to Luke when we process the inquiry saying, thank you for your inquiry, we'll be in contact shortly. And it will And it will also send an email with all the details of the property. So that's already happened when I put this in before today's webinar. Instantly, this person got that. Now, you can see match existing clients will check the database to see if there's a match found. And it's telling me, look, Luke's already in the database. So that's a good thing to do just before you call them back. You might see the number there and you might give them a call and you go, oh, look, they're already in the system. I could look them up. Or you can hit the process option and it's going to create Luke as a new client. But because Luke is already in the system with a mobile and that email, when we process this, it will not add a new client. You can see that it's linked to the one with Luke and Natalie. And if we look in the activity area, it's added the inquiry on the 13th of May that I made on 8 Skinners. And in the summary area, it now has that inquiry logged in here at that date and time. And straight after it tells me it was sent the automatic email and the automatic SMS. That's part of our trigger system. All inquiries, as a default, get an SMS if they have a mobile and an email reply. Okay, so you can see that there. So we learn how to put clients into the system. Let's just go back to what happens when you first add a client if it's a new person. It will take you to this screen. Now, the one thing that I mentioned before was birthdays. Just want to show you how to add them. If you go to the edit contact area, you can see you've got date of birth. So if this was a listing, say, and I got Luke and Natalie's driver's license and I want to put them in the system, we can go back into here and go back to, it's going to take me a while to go there. So we'll go back to 1984. Okay, we'll select September. We'll go to 11 and we'll put that birth date into the system and we will save. So on September 11th this year, if I have my birthday trigger turned on, it will send an automatic email and SMS. I said I'd show you a preview of what that would look like. So let's just see what the system would do automatically. It would go send, email. It will then find this at, let's say 9 a.m. in the morning. It's going to be the happy birthday email, and it's going to send this instantly off to Luke. Dear Luke, from everyone at LockedOn, we would like to wish you a happy birthday. Okay, so that's gone to Luke around 9:30 in the morning, and we can do SMS. If you've got this set up, it's going to be the trig, happy birthday, and this is being sent off to Luke on that date. Okay, you can see the text there, happy birthday from all the team at LockedOn. Every year on September 11th, that will happen. And you could do a thing like changing your template every year and making it look different, but you know that it's going to send that template every year on that date, okay, to that person. So that's important. Tracking the birthdays is done here in the birthday area. Now, general rule of thumb, if you're new to LockedOn, if you're existing, you're probably a bit advanced for this, but I like to always work left to right. Whether you're adding clients or properties, and it might seem a bit tedious at the start, but just follow the rule for the first 10 clients you do, and you'll find your way around the system quite quickly then. Always start on the left tab and work your way to the right. So when we're looking at a summary, this shows me everything that's ever happened with the client. And I use Luke in a lot of my training and a lot of my webinars. So you can see there's quite a lot in the activity summary we have here. Emails being sent, SMSs, notes. That will get quite long as you get more and more clients. But you might just say, look, I want to look at the notes that I've recorded against them and filter just to that. If you need to add a note against your client, which if you're putting someone in new to the database, you should always be adding a note. You go actions, and this is where you see all of the options you can do on a record. You'll see this on the clients and properties and throughout the system. So actions allows you to add data into a system or action something on it. We're going to hit add note, and we're going to put in webinar, and then we can hit add. You'll now see that the date and time is recorded, what agent did it, and there's note at the top. So this is always in date order, everything that's happened with your client. We then go into the information and we look at the general tab. Tagging is very important. So this general tab is really all about tagging. We can see we can track a lead source. You'll have options here, which we give you default, and you can edit your own. I'm going to show you that in a second. Potential seller, we're going to talk about in the next session. Very, very important button. Here we can see what agents are assigned to it, the gold always being the primary, and we have important details about the client. So the best way to think of this is that they will show up on the screen before you do a phone call to your client, and they do not get lost in the summary notes. So if you knew that they followed the Manly Seagulls as their NRL team, or they really liked the Premier League of soccer, or they had 3 dogs and you knew their names, or their kids' names were Austin and Charlie, you record that here, because every time you go to call this client, which I'll show you, these pop up and they're just great things to speak about. Oh, what's happening to this team in the off season, or how you're looking forward to this, coming up. They're things that will make a big difference when you're speaking to clients. So don't add heaps, but it just needs to be, a couple of sentences about important things to touch on when you speak to the client. Now, your client tags are the categories that you can put people into. So I'm just going to clear this and pretend that it's empty. When I go and add a new client, I know that Luke's going to be in the buyer category hot, because we're dealing with buyers, and he's told me he's financed, he's ready to go. And I'm also going to put him into a list called VIP. I can then save that information, and that then puts him into those two tags. Tagging is important because it now allows you to find a list of people quickly to either call, print, send an email, an SMS, or a letter to. So if you're in your clients list and you said, look, I'd really love to speak to all my VIP people, we will find the VIP list, which has 9 clients in it, and I can now print this list, or I can go to send email, SMS, or letter using the send function. Now I'm going to show you one of my favorite features in the system now, which is the hit list function. And the hit list is basically turning LockedOn into a telemarketing machine or a data cleansing machine. Now, VIP to me is people I want to speak to once a month. So it's now time for me to call my 9 people. I then go to actions and I can create a hit list. Now with a hit list, it now says, okay, the group you've got, give it a label. So I'm going to put VIP and we'll call this May calls. I'm going to do a phone call list. Now, default list is about cleaning data. So you just want to go through and check records and make sure they're up to date. Phone calls is we're actually going to try and connect with these people. And we hit create. And what that now does is give me a list at the top of the screen that I can communicate with effectively. So the first person, Ian, I go into the view summary. I have all of his notes. I have every single piece of information about him that I can review. And I can then dial his number. As I'm speaking to him, I may be adding more notes by using the actions add note. I may want to set another follow-up call against him, which we'll get to in a second. But I finish the call and I then go to next item and I have to select an outcome. Did I speak to him? Was he unavailable, or did I leave a message? And I'm going to say that I contacted him. Now the next person, again, I've got all their information, I'm reviewing it, and I actually left them a message. And then the next person was unavailable. So I'm getting through my VIP calls. Now let's say the day's over and I didn't get to finish all those calls. Remember, you can use hit list on any list you want, whether it's properties or clients. I'm showing you an example of VIP. I go into my tasks, I look at my hit list, and it gives me a summary of all the different hit lists I have. My VIP May calls, I got through 3, I've got 6 remaining. I start tomorrow, I'm going to finish these 6 calls, and I hit launch. And I now go into the next person, Miles. I call Miles and I might have left a message, and I'm going to finish these off now. As you can see, a hit list is just a way of saving call lists for you to get through as many as you can, track the outcome, and then start that list again until you get to the end of it. It's by far my favorite feature in the system. So get onto that, use it for everything. It's a very, very powerful system. I've always said the best thing you can be doing is face-to-face meetings with people. The second best thing is phone calls, and the CRM, turning it into a telemarketing machine and smashing your phone calls, is going to produce a lot of income. So just always be thinking about that. So that's the first time we'll show you hit list, and we'll show you it in many different places throughout today. So now that we've looking at my client again, there's a few different ways you can search for people. So I can type in, when I go into clients, this is the easiest way to search: the name, the number, the address, the email, and it will find the matching records. You also have a global find, which means you can search basically anywhere from LockedOn by clicking on the screen at the top and typing name, number, email. This will only give you top 5 results. So it's not the best search. You might type something in here and go, why isn't my person showing? It's because they're not in those sort of top 5 results. But if you do know exactly the number, the name, the address, you can search effectively anywhere from LockedOn by clicking this search LockedOn area. And that will search for properties. It will search for street addresses. You can see there's my top 5 results for Malua, my top 5 contacts that have Malua Street in their name or in their address. And then I can go into any one by clicking the arrow and view contacts. So a few different ways to search. My favorite way is if you're looking for a client, click clients. If you're looking for a property, go into properties. That you'll always get the exact record you want there. But global find is great when you know exactly who you're looking for. So searching for my person now, We'll go into Luke and Natalie in the information. We've looked at the general. We already touched on the contacts when you first add a person. This is where you land. And now we're going to look at the buyer criteria. Now, when you process an inquiry or you put a buyer into the system, that will generally be off. And I'm just going to delete this so we start fresh. Now, when you're putting someone as an active buyer, you click active buyer, and that flags them as being an active buyer under your name. And it gives you this screen that pops down so you can enter in their criteria. You can have multiple criterias on people. So this works well when people have a really diverse area where they say, look, we sell a lot of investment units and we also sell homes, and the units are only 300 to 500, but the homes are 1.5 to 2. So you need to have two different criterias for that. So when we're putting in criteria, you can add one for houses, you can add ones for units, you can add as many as you want by hitting add buyer criteria, and that will give you another one to add. So I'll just delete the second one and we'll keep one. Now, the one that we've got, the basics, all CRMs have this, but we make it quite nice and easy and visual here. So you're looking for 2 beds or more, 1 bath or more, 1 car or more. You know, the property types, we want a house, we want townhouse, okay, they might want apartment, they might want unit. You have all the options there below. You can type in the suburbs. So we might be looking in Dolls Point. You select that from the list. That's using Google Maps. Now, the more you enter in, the smaller your search results will be. So I don't want to put too much in here at the moment. You can also put in postcodes. If you put in a postcode, it will overwrite the suburb. So generally a postcode is saying, look, we're looking in a larger area than just this particular suburb. Okay, we also have the price range, which is the most important. Every buyer that you're communicating with, you should ask, look, what's your maximum price? If you don't need a minimum, but you can put that in, but a maximum, let's just say for now is 3 million. And that puts in the price range and any buyer notes that you want to record. Now, when you save this, you'll see that it says click here to view matching properties. Okay, it will take you to the listing matches screen. And here we can see I have 5 matching properties. You can get to this also by clicking properties and going listing matches. And Luke and Natalie, now because they're a buyer and they have 3 million to spend, they have 5 properties that we match. Now, I'm obviously speaking to them on the phone, or I've said, look, we've got these 5 as well that you might be interested in. We then can hit send email to communicate this list of properties to them by using a standard template called buyer match. This is in all your accounts. If you don't have it, we can easily add it. Just means you don't have the Aaron Shiner pack installed, but it's a very simple email to build. It has your logos at the top, a nice message that you can customize, which is over here on the right. Okay, but you've got a default message there, and then it goes into the matching properties. So with all the photos, the addresses, the price, and there's a more button that takes them through to your website, and a play video button if they have a video. Now you hit the send option and that sends off to your client. So that's kind of entry level 101 buyer management, is process, collect the data, and then send the buyer match email. That's what we call great first impressions. You've called back the client, you've listened to what they want, and you've sent them an email of everything else you have that matches. That is perfect buyer first impressions of your business. Now, following up from that, now because you've collected their data, you try and sell the benefits of your CRM. You say, look, Luke and Natalie, we have your criteria now. And because we have that, every new listing we get that matches your criteria, you're either going to get an SMS or an email from us to let you know about that listing before it goes to market, because we like to market to our database first. So I use 8 Skinners as my example here. And this is the just listed process that you all should have really embedded in your business, is that every time you get a listing and you've got the marketing and details ready to go, before you upload it, do this. Go into the buyer match area in your listing. It will tell you how many matching buyers you have. I have 7. Now with these 7 matching buyers, we'll go into the send and we'll use an email. And with the email option, we can use the just listed, which is another template that comes with your account. It will put in your logo, the photos, property details, buttons, and agent's information, and we can send this off. A feature with the send when you're doing single or bulk emails is that you can choose to send now or send later. Sending later basically says, look, this is a new listing. I don't want to launch it now, but I want to do it tomorrow. And we're going to do that at 9 a.m. So it's going to send automatically to these 6 people at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, or you can pick whatever date or time you want. You also can send it from a particular person in the office. For this example, Luke's the listing agent, so we send it from him. Or we can choose primary assigned agent. So this is 6 people that it's going to, if there was 3 buyers that were mine and and 3 buyers that were Dave's, 3 emails would come from me and 3 emails would come from Dave. That's what this one is. So it's sending from the agent working with the buyer. So whatever your business wants to do there, we can accommodate on who should be sending the email out. Now, I won't send that, but that would send the just listed off, and hopefully your accounts have a lot more than 7 matching buyers. I'll show you some email stats in a second, but the last thing I want you to implement in your just listed is an SMS. Now, SMS is cheap, it's super effective, and you get replies instantly. 6 cents really a message for 160 characters. Buyers are going to reply instantly, especially with just listeds. Now, let's just take these 7 matching buyers and say that I actually have 700. I don't want you to SMS 700 buyers every time you get a new listing. But what you should be looking at is the start date and end date. And the start date basically says, well, look, tell me when these people became buyers. So if I said, look, from the 1st of this month, how many buyers do I have in the system that I turned them active? So I turned Luke active today, and he's a buyer from the 1st to the 5th. And that means that I'm going to SMS all the buyers that have been active for the last 30 days. I don't want to SMS everyone, but just the most recent buyers. So I can now go send SMS. And with this, I can now send off a just list. Whoops, not sold. We're going to put listed buyer, hot new listing. We can update that. The template's already written for you, and it's going out to, let's say, my 10 hot buyers. Not hot buyers, my newest buyers. So 8 Skinners Avenue has just been listed for. You've sent them the SMS. They probably haven't checked their emails yet, but they're going to get that soon. And what you've effectively done with a great just listed campaign now is emailed all of your buyers, so everyone who matched, and you've targeted a specific SMS to the most recent buyers that have come into contact with your business. And we know that the most recent people are the ones that reply straight away, that are keen to see everything. They're going to get you people through that listing in the first open home or prior to the first open home. They're going to be super motivated to come and see it. So that's a quite effective just listed campaign. Now, when you've sent an email off, how do you use those stats to your advantage? So we'll go back to the main screen and we'll go into the reports area on the left here. This is where we can see all our print reports. That's really nothing we need to explain too much here. We don't go into it today, but it's all date range searching. But you see emails at the top. So in my example, I did a test just listed for 8 Skinners, which was the property we were on before. And we can see that it's been sent. We've had 12 opens, 10 clicks, and it's given me all the stats. What's important with this is if I sent this off to 700 buyers, there is no way in the world that any agent could call 700 buyers about every listing they get. No way. But what's effective is self-qualification, is when buyers get your email, they open it, and they either click on the link to watch the video or to view the property online. Now, to me, that tells me, hey, this buyer is interested. Now, I'm not going to call all the people that opened it, but what I'm going to look at is these people that clicked on the link to view the property online, or the people who clicked the video. So if I click this particular link, it shows me the 10 people who clicked on the button in the email, which was to view more. Again, the hit list feature comes into play dramatically here. With these 10 people, if I'm the listing agent, I sent this email yesterday, I'm now going to make sure that part of my routine is just listed email goes. I give it 1 day. I look at who clicked on it. I get on the phone. I go actions, create hit list, and I start to call all the buyers who got my email. And I ring George and I say, George, we've got the perfect property for you, 8 Skinners Avenue. You may have seen my email. Oh, yes, I saw that yesterday. I clicked on it, really liked it. Great. I want you to be one of the first through it. Next, 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 next. And we're calling the 10 people until we finish all those calls, and then we can close that hit list. This is, if you've got a PA, you've got an assistant, this is their 101 standard. You have to do this for every just list that goes out. You ring the people who clicked on the email and you get them through the property as soon as you can, or through the first open. So hopefully you've seen some really good things to a just listed process there. The bulk email to the SMS to the follow-up, using the email stats to your advantage in that particular case. So again, that's in the reports. In the emails area, you can see all your bulk email stats that you've sent by going into the details area. So again, we'll go back to Luke and we'll look at him as a buyer. Now, we've put all his information in. We've been working with him for a bit. If we look at the activity here, we're not going to touch on, there's one last thing in properties that I did want to show is the listing matches. Super important. But what's also important for potential seller leads, a new feature we added probably about 3 months ago, is this appraised matches. This actually shows you what appraisals you have that match their buyer criteria. Now, they're not listing, so you can't obviously tell them about it. But what this does to you as an agent is you go, well, I actually have Luke and Nat who have told me they're financed. They're not going to muck around. They want to do something the next month or so. I have 2 properties that I can now look at and say, I want to call these vendors. Now, 16 Malua Street, I just know that that's an appraisal that I've got that will suit them. And these are ordered by date of appraisal. So the most recent appraisal is always at the top. So if I go into 16 Malua, I can get on the phone and go, look, Luke Smith, bring him up, call Luke and say, look, Luke, I know we praised your property 6 months ago, but I've just met a buyer who's financed. They're not mucking around. I've kind of hinted about your property. I haven't told them too much, but I think it would be perfect for them. These are just ways for you to think about, well, who can I be calling when you meet a super hot buyer? What appraisals do I have that could match them? Gives you another great avenue to be making contact with people that you've appraised. So that's a really, really powerful tool. When you're looking at buyers you've put in, use the appraised matches. Don't do it for everyone. If you're an agent that's got 500 appraisals, if you meet a crappy buyer and they only give you a price, you're going to match 300 appraisals. Now, it's not going to be no use to you, but when you get a buyer like Luke and Nat that says 3 million, it's got to be a house with 2 beds and their buyer criteria is specific, you're going to get really defined appraisal matches. Now, here in the activity is where we track the 4 levels of interest in regards to a buyer. So the 4 levels are inquiries. They then leads to an inspection that then leads to a request of contract or information that leads to an offer. And with the inquiries, as you've seen before, we're tracking these through REO domain directly into your account. So you really don't have to add these manually, but if you do want to add them manually, you find your client, you hit actions and you hit add inquiry and you fill in the details, select the property, date and time and notes. With the inspections, we link your office to HomePass. So HomePass is the free home open app by domain. We get you a free account. You're at the home open. You add the person's details. They sync into LockedOn and adds the inspection. If you're not using an app and you want to put people into the system and you want to add them manually, you go actions, add inspection, fill in all the details. You'll then see the contracts. And this is something that if you're using HomePass and you send them documents from the app, it tracks that you've sent them some contracts. But if you want to say, look, this person I sent more information, you can hit the add contract option. Again, property date and time and notes. And if they submit an offer, you want to record that. So they made an offer of 700,000 on this. We're waiting for it. It hasn't been accepted. We've got some notes. You know, tomorrow they may make another offer. So I want to add an offer and I'll put that for 8 Skinners. And we can put that it's for tomorrow, just pretending, and we'll say that it was 7:05. And we can put in their second offer. This way, we're tracking all of this for our vendor reports and the log of all the offers that are coming on the property. Now, if we're working buyers around a listing extremely well, we'll go into the Skinners Avenue and we'll then be able to see in the activity all the inquiries, all the inspections, all the contracts, all the offers. This compiles all your vendor reports. We'll look into the next session. But if we look at the inquiries, a new feature we just added this week is that I've got 5. We can now edit all the inquiries and say whether they're interested, not interested, and it starts to then flag to you, okay, well, these people, the ones that are very interested, have a different tag on them. And it just stands out that I've had 5 inquiries and I'm just going to put it on these last 3. So all 3 of these last ones are very interested. Okay, they may not have inspected it yet, but that's telling me they're very interested. And inspections, when you're editing them, you generally rate them on a star rating for your vendor report. So 10 stars is they love the house, 1 star is they don't. And you'll be able to see your star ratings here. And you can also sort by star rating when you're looking at this list. Okay, that helps you just say, well, look, there's my top 5 buyers. Okay, contracts and offers are pretty self-explanatory, just shows you all the people there. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is effective communication throughout a campaign is via SMS to these groups of people. So there may be 4 particular things that I always think are quite important that you should be SMSing your buyers around a property. So that's a price reduction. That's if the property sells. That's if it's going to auction this weekend. And that's if you list another one that is similar. So let's just say we have a price reduction. That's probably the most common. You've had 100 inquiries, 10 inspections, 1 contract, 1 offer. You want to get those 100 inquiries to all come and re-inspect the property. So we find the inquiries and we hit send SMS. This then ticks the 4 people that have a mobile. Now, if I said, look, I want to SMS all the inquiries, I can tick all the inspections. all the contracts and all the offers. So it's getting every buyer has had any interest in this property. I can then pick a template and we're going to say price. Okay, so we're going to say price reduction. That's the template that we give you. You can hit update and it shows you the text. Hi Aaron, 8 Skinners has just been reduced to offers above 3.3. The owner's told us to sell. We'll be sending all offers at 6:30 tonight. Now you can change any of that text by editing it here and then updating the preview, and then you can send that off to all of them. I've mentioned this quite before, but there's no better return on investment than SMS. Like that's probably going to cost you 6 cents a message, maybe 12 cents. It's going to 6 or 7 people. You're going to get replies instantly, and you've let everyone know within seconds about a new price on a property. Okay, so that's effective communication throughout a campaign, is always communicating with the buyers that have activity on that property. Use that to your advantage. Speak to them with price reductions. You know, it might even be just letting them on open home, which is a trigger we have, which is actually really cool, and we'll show you that in the trigger section. But it could be for auctions. It could be you've just sold it or you've just listed another one in the area. Okay, now going back to the clients area, before we get close to finishing up on the buyer's side of it, I did mention that effective, like just listed campaigns, they had those 3 steps to it that I showed you before. But I think that I found that's really common with agents is they might say, look, I've listed a property that was similar to these last 3 that I just sold or that I've got on the market, and I want to send an SMS to all the buyers that, you know, came through these because I just sold them 2 months ago, and a lot of those buyers missed out. By using your client's advance find, you can actually use a find here called clients via property activity. And this allows you to search for properties that you have in your system. Now, I know 14 Malua Street is a listing that's very similar to 8 Skinners. I also know that I have in here 36 Malua Street. You can type them or you can see them in a list. And I've got 57 Vista Avenue. Now, I know these 3 listings. I've had a few buyers through them. They haven't sold yet, but I've got a new listing, 8 Skinners. And I want to show anyone who's inspected these or anyone who's inquired. You can put as many properties as you want. I'm doing 3. I hit the apply filter and it gives me 14 clients. So 14 buyers that have been through these properties. I then can go send SMS, email, or letter and let them know that I've got a new listing, 8 Skinners Avenue, that they need to come and see it. So you can do any of those and find those groups of people. And that's a very common thing for offices. They may even also say, I want to create a hit list or a quick list, which is just doesn't allow you to save it. A quick list is the same as a hit list without the saving. So I can go create a quick list and I'm going to call these 14 people now. So I go into the first person, view summary, and we flick through them very, very quickly. And we call them. Sorry, you can flick through them quickly, but you've got to call each person and take notes, and then you can close it. But that's a really great find for working with buyers that have come through properties or recent sales and to let them know of a new one. Okay, so back onto my record. Here's the last part about working with buyers and clients. So we haven't even got into potentials or owning properties yet, but any person you meet, just follow this rule of thumb. Don't care whether they're a buyer or a seller. I'm showing it for buyers now because it's bulletproof, it's effective. But here's what you need to do. If you get a hot buyer, not for everyone, just for hot ones, and you want to keep in contact with them, you want to set a follow-up call, because if you don't do this, you're going to start losing contact with people very quickly. Now, most buyers in your system will be getting like a weekly email or some sort of contact around just listeds and new listings. So if Luke and Natalie was someone you say, look, I'm going to call you every week because I know that they're ready to go and they've got cash, I'm going to go actions and I'm going to create a task against them. Now, it's going to be a phone call, and in that selected date, I'm going to call them on the 20th. So that's a week. And if I leave this at 0 and I just put in some notes, hot buyer call, and we call them next week, I hit add task. It's a one-off call. It's just a one call for next week. But this repeating option is really powerful. So I'm going to say repeat this task every 1, and I'm going to say week. Now, I don't want to do it forever. That's a lot. But for a hot buyer, I'm going to speak to every week for 8 weeks. And if they haven't purchased, they're not hot. So I hit add task, and this now adds a task that's due for me next week. And if I look in my tasks, I have one today. I want to look at next week. There's my repeating call, and I hold my mouse over that symbol. It says repeating every week 8 times. When I go to complete this, it gives me a list of their numbers, their names, their tags, and their important notes. That's something I spoke to you about very early on in this session. When I go to call my client, their important notes come up. So I ring Luke, and the first thing I say is, "Oh, did you hear about the Manly Seagulls in the news this week? They lost their top player or their coach or whatever it may be." That's how I start my call off. And then I go, "Oh, look, how have you been going with your property search?" However you work that into your conversations is up to you, but it's super important. You see that before you call them. They're past notes, and you can then complete that call by hitting complete. Now, as soon as you complete it, it will automatically book in the call for next week. So again, that's not something you need to do for every buyer. And that really depends on where you're at with your career. If you're new to real estate, do it for bloody everyone. Set a call against everyone and speak to them every week. If you're dealing with a lot of buyers and you're a seasoned veteran real estate agent, you're not going to have time to speak to every buyer, but you may do that for all your hot ones. Or you may have an assistant that does that for every buyer for the first 6 weeks, and then they don't have to do it after that. But then they start getting your weekly emails, you just listed, you just sold, your SMSs. So buyers do get a lot of bulk communication from your database and have the ability to call you or contact you or unsubscribe. But that call, going into someone and actions and adding a repeating task is a bulletproof method of great communication, because I said this earlier on, the best thing you can do is get face to face with people. The second best thing that's dollar productive for you is hitting the phones and calling and speaking to people. And that's where this will really excel for you. Okay, so we've gone over a bit about the buyer part there. I'm just going to now pause the recording. Okay, so this button on the main screen here, potential sellers. Sorry, just had to have a quick drink. The potential sellers is probably one of the most important numbers here that you see every day. Definition of a potential seller is you know them, they know you, they own a property in your area. Okay, you know them, they know you, they own a property in your area. Potential sellers is anyone that you could potentially sell a home to. So this number, we really want to see you grow. It should be at an individual agent, somewhere between the 900 to 1100 mark. That would be like your ultimate goal. You're not going to get there within your first sort of 12, 24 months, but you need to keep growing this dramatically. If I click on the 19, these are all the people I know that have a property in the area that I work or that I could sell. Okay, in this list, you see my record, Luke and Natalie. We're going to keep working with them. Now, in the information area, I've ticked them as a potential seller already. That defines that I know they own a property in the area I work. Now, in the properties tab, it will default load to the vendor, which tells me what properties they own. I've already added these. One I have listed, one's exchanged or unconditional, and another one is listed. So I'm getting to know Luke and Natalie. They're really good owners. They have quite a few investment properties in the area. And I now know they own another property, another unit they want to sell. If you're adding a property to someone, these are the steps you take. You tick them as potential seller. The next thing you do is go actions, link property. Now you can create a new property or link from their postal address. If we add a new property, I'm going to say they own a unit number 4/56 Malua. Sometimes the unit numbers aren't captured in Google, so you need to put that in here. And we're going to say this is an apartment. What we're actually doing now is linking a sales property. You can do rental as well, which is a residential apartment, to Luke and Natalie, and we're going to add this. And this instantly puts us into the property database, okay? So you'll see the screen's changing a bit from what we've looked at. If we're looking at the property information now, we get loaded in the general page. And today's not to go through every single field that's on the screen, but the basics are bedrooms, bathrooms, cars, and you're going to put these into the system, and any additional information you can get, like when it was last sold and date and council valuation. Okay, as much information as you can. If you can figure out the land details, any additional features, but you may get all this when you appraise it, and you can upload documents, as many as you want, against any property. We'll come back to that with the vendor reporting. Now, again, in the summary, it's just taking notes and seeing what you've done with this property. But every time you put a property in against someone, there wouldn't be a reason why you shouldn't have a note against that. So today I learned that Luke and Natalie have a property in 4/56 Malua. They may be thinking of selling that to buy their dream home on the waterfront. So we can hit the add note option, and we put is, investment and may sell. We add that note. So adding the note against the property, because it's linked to our vendor, if we go back to our vendor record, we can see that note in the same date and time order here. Investment may sell, and that's the note I added for that property. To get back to their property, I can either search it in the properties database, or I can go to properties and see that it's now on their list of properties they own as a potential. So we're adding a property in as a potential. And what I'm going to walk you through in the next sort of 10, 15 minutes is the property life cycle. Okay, the property life cycle is the same for Australia and New Zealand. We go through 5 core stages of selling cycle, and each stage, if you use LockedOn, the beautiful thing is that we give you DNA plans and systems to try and build a relationship to give yourself the best shot to take them from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 to stage 4 to stage 5. And if we're looking at those stages, the update status button over here on the right, it is, we take them as a potential. So it's someone we know that owns property. We then go to an appraisal. We get invited into their home to give them an idea of price. We follow up that appraisal and hopefully we win that as a listing when they're ready to sell. We then market it successfully, do all our vendor reportings, negotiate, and we get to the point where it goes under offer and then it becomes exchanged. From the exchange is really just a nurture process. It's all done. We've got 6 weeks roughly till it settles, and then it becomes settled. And at this point, we can then transfer it to the new owner. They're the 5 core stages. And right now, this property that I've met for Luke and Nat is in a potential state. Now, if you're wanting to set follow-up, and this is where tasks come into play dramatically and why it's so important to get as many potential sellers as you can into your system, people you know that own property, because all the money from LockedOn is made against the property record. We add in the actions, we apply a DNA. And in the DNA plans, we have all of the standard Aaron Shiner 1 through to our 6.3 plans. I'm going to walk through, as I said, how these get set. Now, if we're looking at number 1, it means that we've met someone who hasn't booked an appraisal yet. I'm going to book this as a potential appraisal and apply this plan. This will now set a whole series of actions against this person, which are tasks, emails, SMSs, and phone calls. If we look at the completed option, some of this plan is automated. So you actually didn't have to click anything, but that SMS got sent automatically. Automation is extremely powerful, and we're just going to pause here from the DNA and the potential area, and I'm going to show you one thing about the DNA plans that come with LockedOn so you can start to turn on automation. If you are the admin or the owner of your account, you can go into the engine, into DNAs and view all, and you will see all of our standard plans. Now, this is kind of advanced stuff. You can build your own plans. Like, plans are just series of events, emails, SMSs, letters, but we give you quite a lot to get started with. If you've never used plans before, just use ours. But if you want to turn on automation, this is how you do it. Inside each plan, you have the ability to edit it, and it will tell you all of the items inside that plan. Now, anything that is green or purple is an email or SMS. And inside LockedOn, we have really cool tools that just allow those things to happen automatically. So looking at this potential plan, you'll see the first SMS load in a second. And that is something I turned on as automatic. So I can hit the edit option. On the template here, I've turned on this button for it to be automated. And over here, you can see that it's automated. By default, guys, all of your DNA plans are not automated. So that means that they will just show up in your tasks and you have to complete them. And that's pretty good for the first 6 months, I would say. As you get used to our plans, as you start to see how we've written our templates, remember, you can customize all the templates and text, make it suit your business better, but everything's pretty good, to be honest with you. But you can go through every plan and you can automate things. So sorry, I just shut that down. I shouldn't have. So the first one was an SMS that was automated, and that actually already sent to me. I've turned my phone off so no one calls me during the webinar, but that would be an SMS sitting on my phone right now. I pretend that's your potential vendor. They've got that SMS. Now the next one is due for 1 day, and this is an email. If I hit edit, that is going automatically. Okay, if I look at the next SMS in 45 days, that's not turned on automatic, but I can turn it on and hit save. For the next plan I set, that will be automatic. Now, in all of our plans, your potentials, your appraisals, your anniversaries, we always have a repeating task. And this is something someone brought up before. You're going to see this, and this is absolutely amazing, like that we do this in LockedOn, is that every appraisal, every sale you make has a repeating SMS, phone call, or email at the end of it that sends to your client every year. Okay, I'm going to show you that inside the appraisal plan that we look at next, but you'll see how powerful that SMS is that it repeats every year. So let's go back to my property and we can see that there's the task. The next one is send an office intro pack. That's due today. That will be in my task list. And the next one's due in a day is an email. So in the task list, you see what you have due today. Okay, we can see that's there. We can go to the next day. There's my email. I know it's automated, but if I look at the automated option, you can see that it's in that list. That's going to happen on that day. But if you get to it a day before, sorry, there it is. You can actually hit complete and you can send it yourself and you can see what that's going to look like. Okay, so all of our templates are pre-done, pre-written, your branding on them. Okay, your logos, etc. So you do have the options. If you want to jump ahead, you can. But if we go back to this property now, as you start building a relationship with your client, what you're starting to see is you're ticking off and you're completing these tasks. And hopefully we're hoping that, by this great communication plan you've set from LockedOn, that they've had 15 points of contact from you over the next 6 months. And they suddenly think, well, Luke's the only person that followed us up. We should get him out here for an appraisal. So you then basically need to either find your client or the property. I'm just going to show you how you find a property. So we'll go into the clear option. So we're looking and we'll say 4/56. I know that's the address. There it is. I click on it. Now the client's called me up and they've booked in an appraisal. So let's go to stage 2 of this. We go to update status. We change it to appraised and we go to the life cycle. So the life cycle now is that we appraise it, we list it, we sell it. Now in the appraisal area, I can set the appointment. Let's just say it was today at 9 a.m. How long did it take? 1 hour. You can forward date these or not. We'll set the appointment. We put in their price, 550. Okay, our price, we reckon it's around 500 to 520. And we can put in our estimated commission, 3%, and tells us it's worth 15 grand and any notes, and we save that. Now, because I've put in the appraisal information, I now can go into actions and I can apply the appraisal plan. But here's one thing to remember. Before you set a plan against a property, make sure you remove the last plan you had, because this potential appraisal plan, if I leave this on and a lot of the stuff is automated, it's actually going to keep sending them SMSs saying, hey, we'd love to appraise your property. We got buyers that are interested, da, 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 da. And that looks pretty silly because you've already set the appraisal or you've done the appraisal. So before I set a plan, I filter to my potential appraisal plan that's on this record. I can then select all and I can delete the tasks that are no longer relevant. And now I have the ability to go actions, apply DNA, and I can set an appraisal plan. Now this will only work if you have an appraisal date against the property. So it's kind of like a fail safe. If we hit apply, you see the appraisal plan is now added and I've got my first letter. Letters are really cool. Like not a lot of people do them. Everyone's just like, oh, let's do emails. But emails don't have 100% open rate. It might not get written. It might go to junk. Letters are still very, very powerful. So we've got a lot of letters in here, emails and SMSs. But to do a letter, you hit complete. It will then go through a merging process where it's getting the document ready. And then it will just download in Microsoft Word our template. So you can then edit that. You can make changes to it before you print it. But we can now see in a few seconds, it will give us this letter and it will just be a Word file that we can download. Okay, now throughout that plan, we have several different letters. I may have a setting on there. There we go, it's merging now. And we get the download. We open that, and this is what will happen in your tasks as well. It'll tell you what letters to print each day. And we can then see the document will open in Microsoft Word. Okay, so that means you can print a letterhead in your certain tray. You can change anything you need here. There's my first standard document, go forward plan of what we would do after we list. And we've sent that off as a letter to our client. Okay, so we've set our appraisal plan. And this is what I want to show you now. With all your appraisal and anniversaries, you get to these last items in it. So for the appraisal plan, every year after their appraisal, okay, we have the first year anniversary one. So that's appraisal. Hey, it's been a year since we've appraised your home. Da, 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 da. It's a nice, cool message around that. Okay, prices have changed dramatically. We'd love to book in a time to give you an update. On year 2, we have this one, which basically just says, it's been 2 years since we appraised your home. It says 0 now because it's been 0 years. As time flies, part of my service, I'd love to reappraise properties every year. Reply to this SMS and we'll book it in. Year 3, that will repeat every year forever. So every appraisal you do from now on in, if you do not list it, they are going to get at least an SMS from you on that appraisal date every year, again, till they die or you die. Just saying it's been 3 years since your appraisal, 4 years since your appraisal, 5 years since your appraisal. Hopefully by 5 or 6, 7 years, they get you out to list the damn thing. but that will happen automatically if you turn that SMS to be automatic. You do not have to think about it. Every appraisal you do in the system will automatically get an SMS if they have a mobile number saying it's been X amount of years since we appraised your home. We'd love to reappraise it. Hopefully they don't list, at least you're getting invited to do an appraisal every year to tell them about how their property prices are going. So the property's been appraised, and if we go into my dashboard and we just hit the refresh option, we'll see the appraisals go from 2 to 3. And I can click on this to see my 3 appraisals, and there's 4/56 Malua. Now, my appraisal here that we've done, they're either going to choose to list with me or not. So let's just say bad news, bad case scenario, they go with someone else. Boo. So we go into the task and we look at the task option. Sorry, we're going to tasks and we look at the task option here. We've got the number 2 appraisal plan. So I'm going to select all these. Go into clear selection. We're going to use the filter to appraisal and we'll go to the clear delete task. Now they chose someone else, so we actually have a plan for that. We go actions, apply, DNA, and we set 2.1, which is lost appraisal. That sets nice plans, nice follow-up to hopefully win the listing back. Okay, if they don't choose someone else and they choose you, which is the best option, we're just going to clear that. You then go into the update status and you mark it as listed. Now I've already got a listing set up, so we go into properties and these are my 9 listings. And let's go into 1, 2, 3. Oh no, I might use 8 Skinners. Where's that there? So I've update the status to listed, which is done. And we go into the life cycle listing tab and we fill this in. So I've got my date listed, the contracts received. There's the date that it's launched, which tracks when you first upload it. If you don't upload with us, make sure you put in there the date you first advertised it. We've got our listing agents. I'm going to change to me. Secondary listing agents, pricing, vendor agreed amount. If it's under offer, I tick that, but it's not. And some other simple details below. Now, when you're getting a listing, you also would then have your marketing and you start setting up your details. When the property's ready to market, so you have all your photos and text done, you have to turn that on so that it's included in your emails. But here's where you add your images, which you can bulk upload images and floor plans. You can set your opens here and you have the ability to select what portals you want this to go to by turning them on or off. And you can press the upload button when you're ready to upload this. Okay, so that's if you're using us for upload. Now, when you get a listing and you fill in the information, you may not have all the marketing and details, but if you want to use our plans, we have some pretty nice checklists to get you from point of listing to getting everything right so it's ready to launch. And in the actions, apply DNA, or sorry, before I apply that in the tasks, I want to filter to the plan that's on it. And oops, that was the wrong one. Okay, we're going to select all and we're going to delete all those items that are on there. And we're now going to actions, apply DNA, and we're going to select the 3 listing awaiting contracts. Now, in some states, you don't have to await contracts. We understand that, but just pretend this is your listing, new contract signed up. It is just a checklist to basically say, let's get this listing ready to go. Send off letters to solicitors, start doing some tasks to getting all the details added to LockedOn, email your vendor with a group inspection email saying this is going to happen soon. Here's a letter of everything that's going to happen very soon on your property. There's a few phone calls in there, a few SMSs, but it's basically a checklist 101. Let's get this listing on the market. Now, all of these get done pretty quickly. You can see in 14 days, we should have all of it done. Some of them get done even quicker. I'm just going to remove that. Let's pretend you tick them all off. That's generally what happened with a listing. Now we've got everything ticked off. We've got the marketing done. We've now uploaded it to the internet. We go actions, we go apply DNA. And if you want to use our Aaron Shiner property gone live vendor communication plan, you set 3.1 and you set that from the day you launch it or the closest Monday. So if I launch it today, I'd set it from Monday the 18th and I then hit apply. This will keep me in regular contact with my vendor from the perfect work week. Okay, so now we've got organized 50 just listed letters, new email listing to matching buyers, notify 100 buyers, SMS to your vendor. Very good vendor communication plan. This goes for 90 days, and this is going to help you to educate them throughout the whole process. So that's a great plan. Look, not everyone uses it. Not everyone's as intense as this plan. If you're speaking to your vendor once a day and you're communicating with them quite consistently, then this plan might be overkill. But just take someone who's new and got their first listing. By all means, you definitely should be using this. You might not use everything. You might see tasks that you don't need to do, but it's going to give you a really good introduction into what's considered industry standard around vendor communication. So the property's on the market. We've been tracking the activity, inquiries, inspections, contracts, and offers like I showed you before. We're 3 weeks into the campaign and you've been doing a few vendor reports. Doing vendor reports is by going into activity, vendor reports tab, and generally we train to do vendor reports every week, okay? So you do one now, you do one next week, and to create a vendor report, you go actions, and we go add vendor report. And I would say, if I'm doing it every Wednesday, I would say, look, it's from the 6th to the 13th, and I fill in my details. So activity summary, inspection summary, report summary, and I have a few toggles of what can happen on that report. Let's look at one that's previously done. So we go into the edit. I've set up some notes and report summary. Some people like to do one vendor report, which is perfectly fine. And if you're going to do that, you put the date you listed it and you always change it to the date that you're at. So we're at May the 13th. So as long as it's got a start date and end date, it will work. And you can just update the comments here. And now you have 3 options of doing vendor reports. The first one is to create the PDF. So you can go into the option, go edit, download. This is going to use your company colors. It's going to create a nice cover page of the property with their photo, vendor report for the date, and it gives them a campaign summary. So it's been on the market 590 days. You've had 10 open homes, 4 inspections, 5 inquiries, 2 contracts, 3 offers. This is the report for the current week or date range you did. Tells them a lead source of where their inquiries are coming from. It's got the inquiries listed below. It's got the inspections, the contracts, the offers, any campaign, if you're doing tracking what's being spent, any payments, and then the summary notes at the bottom. Nice PDF, very good vendor report, getting great feedback on that. Now, the second option is if they have an email, you can go email report. And this will then send off a nice email of the property to the vendor, which gives them a summary of all of the details of the property. So in your account, sorry, I've stuffed this up, but in your account, it has a nice email text. I've deleted that testing. I need to put that back in. But yours will have a really nice text below the photo that says, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor. Here are the stats for your latest vendor report. Gives them all the breakdown, the stats, some summary notes and information. But it also over here on the right attaches the PDF report, which it says in here, please review your PDF. And then you can send that off to them. Now, the best vendor reporting for the advanced users is the portal. Okay, so this is here, show on vendor portal. If you want them to log into the portal and see all of this information online, you tick this on. That means that it's now available for them to log in online. Now, to set them up to log in online to the vendor portal, you have to go to your vendors, to the view contacts, and you use the drop-down arrow, invite to vendor portal. You've got their name and detail and you hit send invite. Now this will send an email to your vendor saying, hi Luke, please set up your vendor portal password. They type in a password and then it logs them in and it says, save this address, vendorportal.com.au, so that you can log into this whenever you need. Now let's go back to this property in the activity and we'll look at the vendor reports. Oh, sorry, it's the wrong property. I'll just go to 8 Skinners. Okay, we look at this property and we can then go into the activity vendor reports and we can preview the vendor portal. So when they log in, they see this. Comes up with a screen that shows them a grayscale of their main photo. It gives them all of the numbers and stats, gives them the last notes from your vendor report, and it will show them every inquiry, every inspection, every contract, every offer. Now over here, we have the active portals they're on and our listing agents that they can email. We have their marketing, heading, text, key features, and we have all their images that they can click on and flick through. We also have below the documents. So any document you want to add that you want them to see online, you can put this in the information documents. And if it's a rental appraisal letter, you can then say show on vendor portal, and it gives this little VP icon, which means it's in their portal. If I was to refresh that, you would see now down the bottom in the documents, they can download these PDFs or these reports whenever they want in their vendor portal. It's extremely powerful. A lot of agents upload their domain and REA PDF reports in there so that they're all in the system as well. Now, the other great thing is when vendors log into their portal, you actually can get an alert, an email to you that says your vendor is online checking their portal now. Now, to set that up, you go into your My Details, you go into settings and you just turn on the vendor portal access. Each user needs to do this. So some people don't like it because their vendors log in 100 times a day and they hate getting the notifications, so they can turn it off, but I would always have it on, and it tells me when they're online, when they're checking, and I know when to call them. So that's premium vendor reporting, up-to-date communication. The portal is by far the best, but you can have a PDF, print, or you can email it. Now let's go back to our property and 8 Skinners. Let's finish off the process of selling this property. So we have 8 Skinners and we've got a buyer who loves it. We've connected them. Over here on the right, we can see, I'm just going to delete this, but if you need to add a solicitor or a purchaser, solicitor or a purchaser, you can link all the parties here. So we hit add purchaser. We know that Dave has had the offer accepted. We link him and now he's linked to the property. I'm then going to go into the life cycle, into the listing, and mark it as under offer. So under offer just means his offer has been accepted pending conditions. It's not exchange, it's not unconditional yet. So in the sales advice, I'd fill in all the details about the sale. Andrew sold it. It's gone under contract on this date. It's going to exchange soon. We've got the settled date, and then we have the price, the commission rate, and it shows us the breakdown there. Then you can select your vendor, solicitor, and purchaser solicitor. If you've got our standard sales advice, you can then print the sales advice here. That will merge your sales advice document. Now, the property's under offer, and let's say the 5 days cooling off has happened, and some states are different. So let's just say all the conditions are met. It's now gone exchanged or unconditional. At this point, you would go into the tasks. You would see what plans are set against here, which is generally, you should only have your vendor communication plan set, but you would remove the gone live plan. So I select it. I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to delete it. And when a property goes exchanged, we go to the status of the property. We update it to exchanged. And we then go into the actions, apply DNA, and we set the exchange to settlement for vendor, which is unconditional settlement. We apply it. And we also set the exchange to settlement for the purchaser. Now, the reason they're broken up is that lots of LockedOn users have single users inside offices. They didn't sell it and they didn't list it, or they didn't list it. So you only need to set one. But if you are the lister and seller and you're communicating with both people, set both. This gives you great follow-up and all your sold congratulations from the time it goes exchange through to settlement. You're going to be speaking to solicitors, purchasers, vendors, purchasers, solicitors, and making sure that the sale happens smoothly all the way up until settlement. So there's a lot of good content in there, a lot of good things to do for both your vendor and your purchaser. So make sure you set both of them at the point of unconditional exchange. Now, that's a 6-week process that you're waiting for this to settle, sometimes longer. When the settlement date happens, you generally get a call from your solicitor that says, congratulations, it's done. At that point, you update the status to settled. Now the sale is officially done. At some point, the vendor and the purchaser, they're going to come and collect the keys for the property. At that point, like as soon as you get the call, we generally want to be transferring this over to the new owner. So once you've updated it as settled, it's just, my internet might have just gone. Hopefully you can all still hear me. Just see if that's refreshing. Okay, so we'll go back and I'll find this property. It's not going to be a listing, but it's going to be under my settled list. Okay, there it is. So pretend we got the settled call today. The final part of the process is all your anniversary stuff. And to do this, you transfer the property. You'll see this button appear when the property is settled. You can transfer it to the new purchaser. So to do this, I hit transfer, and now I just go through a very simple workflow of moving it from one person to another. So the first one is the seller questions. Luke and Natalie Newton, the vendor, remove all uncompleted tasks and DNA. Well, let's do that. Assign a new plan to them. For most of your vendors, you set 6.1 settled vendor. It's simply a communication, email, and SMS to them every year on the day they sold their property. You can also update their postal address. So this one was an investment. They're not selling the one that they live at. So we're going to keep that the same. If you want to add tags to them. So if I sell a property for someone, I add them into the VIP. So I put them in the VIP tag and I'm taking them out of the buyer category. So cleaning up my vendor tags. And then I have my purchaser question. So we always leave create property assigned to the purchaser. And we pick a DNA plan. Are they a live-in or an investor? We'll say they're a live-in. Do we want to put them in any tags, or they're already in VIP and my Christmas card list? Are they going to remain an active buyer? We say no. And do you want to update their postal address to be the purchased property? Yes, they're moving into it. And then we hit transfer. And you'll see it goes through just a checklist of now completing the transfer to Dave Hammond from Natalie and Luke Newton. So let's let this process go through the creation of the new record, assigning all the anniversary plans for our vendor and our purchaser, and we'll see a congratulations icon here. So congratulations, it's all done. If we go to the new property is a potential. Hopefully this has hit home with you now. Anyone who owns a property in your area that you know is a potential seller. A good potential seller is someone you've sold to because they have a DNA plan set against them, which is an anniversary plan with a whole lot of communication. And these anniversary plans we set, they never end. So in 5 years, when all my really specific year 1, year 2, year 3 finishes, they get a generic settlement email and SMS every year until they die or we die. And that's just saying happy anniversary. It's been X years since your property sold. You know, if I can be of any useful service, please give me a call. That will happen every year on their anniversary date from the selling agent, and the SMS will go as well. And that's going out to them saying it's been X years since you purchased your property. May you enjoy your home for many more years. Contact me if I can help. That's the power, the automation, the reoccurring, never have to think about an appraisal or a sale you've made ever again with these plans set against them and automation turned on. Okay, so let's look at the final part of this. We've gone through the properties, life cycle, and the transfer part. We now want to look at the final part of just sold. This is my favorite part. Okay, so the hit list comes into play here again. If we have a really effective database, so you've databased everyone correctly, you're putting in all your potential sellers, you know, you're working an area, let's call it Dole's Point, and you've had a great sale, there is no better high conversion than just sold calls, nothing better. So if we go clear all filters, I can search my properties database, and I'm going to use an advanced find. I'm going to search property details, and I want to search the suburb. Well, let's do this first. If I had a big database, you would search the street. So Malua Street's the one I sold in, and I want to search all my potentials and all my appraised people and anyone that's come off the market and hit apply. Now, your database should be bigger. I've got 5 people in that street that I've appraised, sold to, know that own property, or they come off the market. Hit list is so powerful here. I go actions, create a hit list. I'm going to do a phone call list, and I'm going to call it just sold Malua. Create a hit list. Now I get through these 5 people. I go into view summary, first record. I can see the vendor's details. I can see all the notes. I can look at the information. I can check the appraisal date and time. Okay, so I appraised them 13th of May, 2020. Okay, let's ring them. Hey, we just appraised your property. We just sold one around the corner. Next, I contacted them. Next person, we left a message. Next person, they were unavailable. But can you see that? I cannot stress this enough. Just sold calls are by far the easiest and highest calls you can make in real estate. You're speaking to people that you have excellent relationships with about a property sale price near them that's having a direct influence on the value of their home. So these conversations are just so easy and so simple. So you're calling those people through that hit list. If you don't get through them all, remember your tasks. Hit lists are saved, and you can clear them or restart them whenever you need. Okay. Now, the next part of the just sold is you should definitely call the street and call the surrounding streets about the sale. Try and get around 25 to 30 calls made around every sale from your database, and you'll be absolutely smashing it. The next part is that you clear all this, and as a bulk communication, you can do an email or SMS. And the general rule of thumb is if you do an SMS for one, then do an email for the next one, SMS for the next one. We also like to include a letter every now and then, but let's just say I want to search the suburb. So I go property details. My area is Dole's Point. I'm going to search all of my potentials, all of my appraised, and anyone who's come off the market, and search for all of them. And there's 6. Now just pretend that's 600 in your area. It's your core area. You've got 600 potential people you know you've appraised or sold to or got a lead. You go send SMS. We're going to use a template, which is the just sold template number 1. It's going to ask us what property did we just sell? Well, we just sold 8 Skinners, and we load that in. We hit update, and this SMS is now going off to my 600 owners of Dole's Point. Great result. We just sold the property address around the corner from the property you own. Text me back for the price. Call for more details. Send, bang, SMS. Cost me 6 cents a message. Going out to 600 people. Your phone will go absolutely bonkers with people writing back. This is high conversion stuff. Like, you may get 1 or 2 appraisals or listings from that if your numbers are right, and it's cost you $15 in an SMS, and you're talking about 15,000 return. It's just absolutely insane if you get your SMS stuff right. And SMSs should always be used when you're trying to use them as much as you can, targeting to specific vendor lists like this. Now, guys, we didn't get much time to cover off on the triggers, but here's what you'll need to do with triggers in Engine. If you haven't got them installed yet, you need to go to your packs, and triggers are all of your automation. So with the triggers, you need to make sure you've got the trigger pack installed. So click install. That will then install all of our standard triggers we have, and we're always adding more. So if you look at the triggers in Engine, here they all are. Now I'm going to leave you with this, is in the dashboard. You can go to watch previous, but I want you to go to www.lockedon.tv, which is our YouTube channel. I'll just redirect you through to that. On Locked On TV, here on the main screen, you have triggers. Oh, I just got to stop that. Sorry. Okay, so you have triggers, and these are all very detailed movies around how to set up all of your triggers. Now, you don't need to watch number 1, installing the pack. I just showed you that. But number 2 tells you how to turn it on. Number 3 tells you what that's doing. Click button, inquiry response, ignore automation, open home reminders, newsletter trigger. Seriously, most offices should have every one of these on. We set them up as defaults, so they're using our standard templates and standard settings. But in the triggers to turn one on, like if you want to turn your birthday one on, which you all should do straight away, install it, just hit edit, and it will be off. You just turn it active and hit save. Bam, that's your SMS and email going out to anyone who has a birthday. Open home alert trigger. That sends off an alert to anyone who's made an inquiry that hasn't inspected it 3 days before every open home for each particular property. Newsletter trigger. I can send a newsletter every week at a certain time to your whole database or just to your buyers. Property inspection trigger. Basically, anyone who inspects a property gets a beautiful SMS saying thank you for your inspection. Then an hour later gets an email from you with all the property details. You know, we talked about the inquiry response run. These are all really, really detailed and explained here. And if you've got any questions on any of them, you always just use the chat option inside your account. But if it was my office, I would have all of those triggers running and on, so that there's good automation happening around some really, really key areas of the system. Okay, so guys, I just want to say thanks for coming to the Locked On webinar this month. It's been a pleasure having you on here. Hopefully you've learned some really cool stuff from what we've been able to cover. I know that I went probably 5-10 minutes over what we're expected to do. But again, this is all recorded. I'm going to have it up on Friday. I'm going to send you the email so you can re-watch it and go back to any part. But I just want to thank you again for turning up, and I wish you all the best, and we'll catch up very soon. And I'm just going to pause the recording now.